Hi, this is Mark from Wiki Design. In this Spline and Elementor tutorial, I'm going to show you something I just figured out. In my opinion, this is some pretty big game changer stuff right here. So let me show you exactly what we're going to be pulling off in this tutorial. Right here is a spline scene, and what I wanted to do was have interactive hotspots like this that would trigger an Elementor pop-up. So let me show you exactly the functionality and then how I was able to pull this off. So if the user goes into this model and they click on any of these hotspots right here, these popping up right here are an Elementor pop-up. So I wanted to have it where the user can fully interact, and as you can see, they can turn the building and these hotspots stay locked into the camera. So there's a lot of steps in this tutorial, and this is actually going to be a little more advanced because I am going to be touching some JavaScript and HTML code. So if you aren't really into coding, this tutorial might not be the best fit because this is pretty complicated stuff. So I'm going to leave timestamps down below so you can follow this tutorial because there's going to be a lot of different steps. First, we're going to jump into Spline. I'm going to show you how I have this whole model set up. Then I'm going to jump into the Elementor backend and show you how I have this page set up, and then how you can trigger the hotspots right here using pop-ups. So let's just jump into Spline and get started. And here we are inside of Spline, and as you can see, everything's already built out. And to make this a lot easier to follow, what I'm going to do is leave a link in the description below so you can just remix this file so you can import everything as is. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk through how you set up the hotspots and have it correspond into JavaScript, and then Elementor can pick that up. So the first step I did is I needed to bring in a model. So in this situation, I wanted to have a low-res building. And instead of building it from scratch, I went over into Sketchfab and I imported that into Spline. And if you aren't sure how to do that, I'll leave a card up here and a link in the description below. I already have a YouTube video on how to import scenes from like a Sketchfab into Spline. It's a pretty simple process. So that was the very first thing I did right there, is bring in the building. The next step I needed to do was create the different hotspots. And if you look right here on the left, I have 4 groups for my hotspots, and I have everything labeled. It's best practice to always go ahead and make sure you label these things, and in this case, it's good to group these things together. So let me show you what's inside each group. And if this right here, the very first one is the pool. So if you look right here, every single one of these groups, I have a path, the main hotspot, and this, if I zoom in right here, the sphere right here, so it looks a little more three-dimensional. So again, the sphere is the little ball right here. So let me turn that. You can see right here where my mouse is. That's how it's going to look. And then the path is going to be the line. And then the name of the hotspot right here is just a circle with the icon. So what I needed to do first, of course, was go into a website. In this situation, I just went to Flaticons, grabbed 4 different icons, saved them out as JPEGs. And if you look right here, let me select the pool. As you can see, it's just a simple circle right here, and underneath image, if I close that, you can see right here, this is the image of that person. So these are just little PNGs, and what I did is I made sure that they were really small. So these things are like maybe 2 or 3 kilobytes because they're very, very small. One thing I did learn is I wanted to have SVG images in here to even have it more optimized, but I don't believe you can use SVGs when you're using it as a image material. So in this situation, I think you can only use like JPEGs and PNGs. So in this situation, I just have it as a UV. I kept the wrapping at a clamp. Sharpness, I made sure it was on crisp, because if you have it on smooth, it might get a little bit blurry. So depending on whatever icon you're going to be using, you may want to change the sharpness right here. And I made sure underneath crop, I hit no. And then the scaling, I was able to just change that right here. Because if you look, if I have it at 1, this is how big it looked when it was at 1. So you can see it's kind of getting cut off. So what I did is I made it 0.65. And that's all I did right there, is change that. And I'm going to jump over into the other one just to show you everything's the same. So as you can see right here, if I go to, I called this one restaurant. And you can see right here, it's the same thing. We have the path, which is the line right here. The little sphere is, the little call out by the building. And then the circle with the icon on it. Now, one thing you do have to make sure is, let me go into the side view Let me show you how I have this. So in this situation, you're going to want to make sure that your path doesn't quite touch your circle right here with your icon. You're going to probably want to leave a little bit of a gap, because when you start to rotate the camera, you don't want that to like poke through or anything like that. So it's best, I found out, that you just have it with a gap, because in the demo, as you can see, if I hit play, I have the icons always facing the camera. So it doesn't really matter where you turn, it's always going to be facing the camera. So now that you have an understanding of how these built, let me show you how easy it is to make it where it's always facing the camera, just like this. And while I already have this one selected, all you need to do is go underneath your events, and I have this one called look at. So you just want to click the plus button, choose look at, and then you can see right here, I have a camera out here called viewer camera. So I have a camera. Let me zoom out and show you where that is. This is your viewer camera right here. So what you're doing is you're just saying target that camera, and I'm doing the tilt as fixed to up. Damping I put at 1Z for the direction, and so when you do that, it's going to automatically lock onto the camera. So that's a pretty cool feature. And you can see you're never going to be able to get behind it. So if you move the camera around pretty fast, nothing's going to happen. It's always going to be looking at the camera. Once you have the model and your hotspots ready to go, there's two things you need to do. And if you look, while you're already in the events right here, if you look, you're going to notice I have a event called mouse down. So what we need to do is just add this. So mouse down, mode once trigger on this object. So it's basically just saying there's going to be some sort of trigger event listener, however you want to call it. So whenever you click down on this, it will do something. So in this situation, we need to have it pop up an Elementor pop-up. So you need to add that functionality, or nothing moving forward is going to work. So you have to make sure you put that on each one of them. So if I go to the restaurant, same thing. We have the mouse down, trigger once on this object. Okay, so now that you have that on all of them, what you need to do is whatever you have right here. So if you see right here on the left where my layers are, you need to make sure that you know what these things are called, because we need to trigger this inside JavaScript in our Elementor website. So go ahead and make sure that you know what each one of these labels are. So let me open up all of them. So I have my pool is called pool-hotspot, restaurant-hotspot, shops, hotspot, sleep. So you need to make sure you put that down in like a notepad, because we're going to be referencing that in the next steps. So now we're going to jump over into the export, and I'm going to show you how I was able to pull everything off. So click on export, and you're going to want to make sure you click this one right here for the code export. This isn't going to work if you have viewer or public URL. You need to make sure that you click on code export. And I'm going to jump into this in a second, but let's go to play settings and let me show you everything I have set up. So we just have the one main scene, so we just choose scene 1. Camera is that viewer camera, so it's the same camera that is being locked onto these icons. Logo, I hit no, so if you keep that on, it will say spline in the corner, so in most cases you probably want that off. BG color, I'm going to keep at show, so that is this color right here. If I zoom out, this is the BG color right here, and if you aren't sure how to get to the BG color, you could just click anywhere not on a model. Like in this case, I'm just clicking the blank space down here. And on the right where it says scene, background color, this is my background color right here. And so let's jump over back into the export. And underneath page scroll, I set that to no. In this situation, if I click play, I don't want the user to be able to scroll down, because on the website, I don't want anything below this model. So I just wanted to have it one big like interactive model like this. So in that situation, I chose no page scroll. And then cursor, I kept it default. I do have an orbit, pan, and zoom on. And the soft orbit, I kept at no. These right here are your mobile settings. So I wanted to have it where the user can orbit with 1 finger, pan with 2. Pinching is zoom. And page scroll is set to no as well. Now, let me show you how these limits work. So let me go into here and show you the difference between the orbit, the pan, and the zoom limits, and then you'll understand what these settings mean. So right here, I'm going to just left click and drag around the model. As you can see right here, I'm moving my mouse as far down as I can, and it's being locked. So I have a limit on the orbit where the user cannot scroll or orbit underneath the model. Because if you have the user being able to go underneath the model, there's a big hole down there and it just doesn't look good. And I have a limit where the user can only go like 45 degrees up before it stops. So that's as high as you can go, but the user can go around the whole model, whenever they want. So that's the orbit limit. And now if I'm showing you the pan limit right now, I'm going to hold down the mouse wheel and the user can only do that. They can only go left and right. So if they want to be able to maybe move it over a little bit, I give them a little bit of freedom to do that. Because later when I show you on mobile, it's a little bit easier if the user can kind of move around, because on mobile, the user might have issues where they can't get to a hotspot, so they can always kind of go left and right. And that's it. So the user cannot pan up and down. So I'm moving my mouse up and down. They can't pan up and down. They just go left and right. And then here are the zoom limits right here. I'm at like 400 right now, and then that's going into like 500. 400, 500. So I just want to give the user the ability to zoom in a little bit. But you probably want to make sure that you don't have any weird things that could happen. So if I'm in this situation and let's say I had to zoom at like 1,000, I might be like inside the building right now and it will look like a mess. So playing around with these limits is going to take a lot of like trial and error. And what's nice is you just change something here, click the play button, you can see what's working. And I'll just quickly go through. Here are the orbit limits. I have it where, like I said, they can go up like 45 degrees. They can't go underneath the building, so that's what 0 is. And then they can go left and right all they want. And same thing for the pan. We have it where they can't go up and down, so that's what these zeros are. Left and right, I have it where they can just move it a little bit. And then here are the zoom limits at 400 and 500. And then the animated turntable is this right here. So just by default, it's automatically going to just animate around. So that's what that is. So if you want that to go faster or slower, you would just change that right here, and you can change it between left or right. And then events behavior, you don't have to worry about that. Materials, you can just put normal. And then underneath compression, I kept it at performance. So once you do that, you could just click update code. And that's basically an overview of how I was able to create this scene. Now what we need to do is click this button right here where it says download bundled zip. So you're going to download that, and then I'm going to show you inside Elementor how you can go ahead and copy in this code that you got and what you need to do to make sure that you can target everything inside Elementor. So let's jump into Elementor and show you how I have everything set up. Here we are inside of our Elementor page. So what I'm going to do is walk you through how I have this page set up, and then you can set it up in a very similar way on your website. So like I said, let me just go ahead and show you the structure of this page, and then it will all make sense. So as you can see right here, we have one big container, which is, let me go here. We're doing a full width. We're doing 100% width, and the mid height is 100 VH. So this right here is just going to fill up the whole entire web page. There's going to be no room at the top or bottom or anything like that. So that's exactly how I wanted this to function. Then what I have is another container sitting inside. And inside of that one, I just have the logo and then a really simple navigation right here. So I'm not really using this navigation, but I just wanted to show you some tricks on how you can make it where these hotspots will be clickable even though they're underneath this container. So let me go ahead and just open that so you can see it's just an image, and this is just text. Now here's where, of course, all the magic is going to happen. So what I have is sitting underneath this container, I just have an HTML widget, and then this is the code that's making everything work with Spline. So let me go ahead and expand this. And of course, I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you can just click and download all of this code. And I'm going to go through this and show you how it is to, set everything up. So the first thing is this right here is actually what's going to be rendering out this canvas. So that's what that means. So this is just a canvas ID of Canvas 3D. Now this right here, there's going to be two different things you need to set up before your scene is probably going to show up correctly in here. So as you can see right here, I have this file right here called runtime.js. So when you click to this button right here, download zip, that's going to be inside of that zip file, is that runtime.js. So what you need to do is now upload that to your server somewhere. and then you're going to be able to change out the URL. So in this situation, I'm just using a demo website / wiki design. I put it in like a subfolder called Spline Popup. So you need to make sure that this is hosted on your server. There might be ways that you can go to Spline and get this runtime file, but I like having this file local. It runs a little bit faster. So after you change this to your own unique URL, then what you need to do is underneath this right here, this is going to be unique to your scene. So if you go into Spline again, that's what this is right here. This is kind of like your direct link to that Spline file. So just go ahead and change that out. And so anytime you make a edit on your scene inside of Spline, it will show up here automatically. Because if you look inside that zip file that you have, you're going to notice that there is a scene.spline code file in there as well. So what you can do, this is probably best practice, would be once you're done with everything inside of Spline, you're not going to make any more edits and this website's like finalized. What you can do is upload it to the same directory where you're going to be hosting this runtime JSON file or JavaScript file. Just host it there and then change out the URL to be just like it is up here, but referencing this. So then what that means is you're not hitting the Spline servers to download this. But the only drawback to that would be if you make any edits on your Spline scene, it's not going to update on the website because it's local. Hopefully that all makes sense. And before we jump into the pop-ups themselves, if you're wondering how I was able to render this out full screen like this, let me show you how I have this HTML widget set up. So if you go underneath the advanced right here, you're going to notice my position is absolute. So what that's going to do is take shape of the dimensions of the main container sitting in. So if you remember, I made it 100% full width and 100 VH, so it's going to fill up the whole thing. And then what you need to do is go underneath the custom CSS and just type in selector width 100% and height 100%. So this is going to take the full dimensions of the container it's sitting in. So I know it's a little complicated, but that's how you're going to have to do it if you want to make sure that this renders out at a full screen. Now I'm going to show you how I was able to use this code right here to trigger a pop-up. So you might notice that it's called Jet-Popup. And the situation here is I am using this plugin right here from crocoblock called JetPopup. I'm going to leave an affiliate link in the description below if you want to actually sign up for this. And you might be asking, why am I using this when Elementor already has a pop-up system inside their system? And long story short is this makes it a heck of a lot easier to target their pop-ups with code. Because what we're going to be doing is, if you look right here what I have highlighted, this is the exact code we're going to be using to trigger that pop-up. I spent hours trying to figure out how to do this inside the native Elementor pop-ups, and it's really complicated, and honestly the code would be so kind of bloated and I didn't want to have to deal with that. And the other thing working on this project and other projects similar is when you use a plugin like JetPopups, you can actually run JavaScript inside those pop-ups without any issues. So if you try to run JavaScript in a native Elementor pop-up, you're going to run into a lot of issues. You're going to have to do a lot of like code hacking. So I love the Elementor pop-ups, but in certain situations when you need to kind of dynamically activate the stuff by code, it just doesn't work that well. So this plugin right here, I can vouch for this. I love this plugin. I've been using it for several client projects and it just works really well. Okay, so once you have JetPopup installed, let me go into the pop-ups I already created. So as you can see right here, I have shops pop-up, the room, the restaurant, and the pool. You can call these whatever. These don't have to be corresponding to like the Spline file I showed earlier. But let me jump into the first one. Let me jump into shops and show you how I have all of this set up. Let me shrink this. So just a very simple pop-up. There's nothing crazy about it. I just have a header. I have a couple containers, you know, just some text. I kind of just did this for a demo. So that's how this thing is set up right here. So what you need to do is actually, while you're inside of each one of your pop-ups, jot down this number right here. So where it says post equals 100, this is the ID of your pop-up. So you can see right here, if I go back into the code, this is for the retail shops and it needs to be 100. So if I go down into this very bottom one, it's called Shops Hotspot, and you can see all you need to do is change out this number where it says 100. And let me just quickly go through what this code is. So inside of Spline, this is the name of my target. So let me go back into Spline. Let's go into the shops. So if we go to shops, you can see right here, that's the name of my layer. It's called shops-hotspot. So that's why I told you need to make sure you have that in your clipboard, and that's your target name. So target name is here. This target name is sleep hotspot, restaurant hotspot, pool. So all you have to do is just match up your JetPopup ID to your target name. You just want to make sure that that's all correct. So if I go into the, let's go to the pool. If I open up the pool is number 75. So I just need to make sure that wherever I have pool right here is 75. And that's it. That's how easy it is to be able to target this stuff. This is why I was like, if you use the Elementor built-in thing, this is like tons of more code, and it is a little pretty complicated. But JetPopup makes it really easy to just use this, and that's it. You targeted your pop-up. Now let me go ahead and show you one thing I learned is if you have these things going, like let's say underneath right here where I have that container, these aren't going to be clickable. So let me show you a cool little trick I found using CSS on how to make sure that everything is clickable at all times. So if you look right here, let me shrink the page a little bit so you can see a little bit of a better example. Okay, so you see right here, the swimmer is going underneath that container. So if I click right here, I'm clicking the mouse right now and it's not clickable. It will be clickable the second I go here, but you're gonna wanna make sure that the user can click it. Like right here, it's completely gone. So let me show you how with CSS you can fix this. So let me go back into that container, and I'm going to remove this background color because I just put that there for an example. The container is selected. I'm going to go underneath custom CSS, and I'm going to drop in selector pointer-events none. And let me show you what that looks like. So if I go back into this page, hit refresh, now the user is going to be able to click that mouse any point that it's within that top container, because right now it's in that container. With that CSS, that's going to give it where the user can click it. So that's definitely a cool little trick I found out doing these type of things. And then if you go underneath each one of these, so on the image, I have selector pointer-events equals auto. So then what it's going to do is now make it where it's clickable. So I just have that go to a website. And then underneath this one, custom CSS, I'm using selector a pointer-events equals auto. So these are just A links right here, href links, and I wanted to have it where the user can click these. So let me show you exactly what that means. So if I'm like this, and the user's like right here, I can click that link as is, but then I can still click it. So let me get you right here. So I can click right now, and it's clicking the pop-up. But if I go right where it says home, it will go to the link. I don't have that link going anywhere, but you can see right here, this is the type of functionality that you want. So again, you can always add these pointer-events CSS to make sure that things are clickable the way they should be inside of a browser. So the next question you might be asking is this going to work inside of a mobile device? And yes, you can do a lot of cool stuff inside of Spline to make sure things are adjusted depending on your screen size. So I did change one thing to kind of make this work pretty well inside of mobile, and that is if you go into the viewer camera, you can see my base state and my state right here. So let me zoom into the position of the camera. So this right here is desktop and tablet, but then when you get to mobile, I have it where the camera goes up and tilted down. So this will give the user a different experience on mobile a little bit, but they can still fully interact with it. Now what I did learn is in this situation, I needed to move the camera closer to the model in order for it to work well with the animated turntable. And if you go underneath your camera, you can see right here underneath events, I have screen size set right here to horizontal. So in this situation, I'm just using anything less than 600 pixels, move the camera. So I chose the target is the viewer camera. The base state is where it's starting, and it takes 1 second to get to the next state, which is the mobile. And let me show you what that looks like on a mobile device. So when you scale down to about 600 pixels, watch what's going to happen. The camera is going to animate up. So you see that right there? So if someone's on mobile, this is the view that they're going to get. So they're going to still be able to fully interact with this, and they can zoom in and out, and they can pan, move around just like they could on a desktop. And so you can always make sure that always fits right here. And what I recommend is actually testing this on a mobile device, because the panning doesn't work inside the browser, but the zoom and the orbit does. But on mobile, they can hold 2 fingers down and they can move it left and right. So that's why I recommended having some sort of limit on the pan, because then it gives the user the ability to kind of move around the model to fit their screen. And of course up here, I just kind of did normal Elementor stuff. I just made the logo smaller and I kept the text right here. And that cursor pointer event that I just covered, you can see right here, it's working fine. So if I click right there, it opened up the pop-up even though it's inside that other container. So hopefully that makes all sense. Now let's go ahead and show you page size and how I was able to optimize this to make sure it loads really fast. So here we are in a whole new incognito window, and I refreshed everything, cleared the cache. And as you can see right down here, this whole scene is only 1.1 megabytes. So that's a really optimized file. A few things I did to optimize this file was to make sure I didn't use a lot of textures right here. I don't have any complicated lighting, because those 2 things alone, that will increase the size a lot inside of Spline. So if you aren't familiar, if you go back into your Spline scene and you click this button underneath Performance, you click Run Test, and it will tell you exactly how big everything's going to be. So the scene by itself is 427 kilobytes. And if you remember that runtime file that you have, that is a little bit of an extra space as well. So that contributes to that 1.1 plus the Elementor. And as you can see, when you scroll down here, they can give you different things that you can go ahead and optimize more. So if I wanted to change this and have it even load quicker, if I zoom into the building, see these like little lines in between here? These are all meshes. So if I go ahead and delete those, it would just be like the one plane of glass without the separator. That will save a lot of extra space when it comes to the polygons. So you can go ahead and make sure that your materials are good. I love this tool right here. This is a great tool. I don't usually kick out a scene until I go in here and look at this. And that's it for this Spline tutorial on how I was able to integrate Elementor pop-ups inside of my scene. Make sure that you give this video a like, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and hit that bell to receive notifications when I release new tutorials like this. Again, this is Mark from Wiki Design.